Folks, my new book, Not Sick of Winning, A History of President Trump's First 100 Days, is available now. Just head over to notsickofwinning.com to buy it on Amazon. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have a very, 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 very long overdue guest, Owen Shroyer, fellow Austinite, host of War Room with Owen Shroyer, won the January 6th Martyrs. Before we get started, Owen, this is only like a little bit of a joke. Thank you for your service. They put you away, even though you did nothing wrong on January 6th. And it is my belief that thanks to people like you, I had Jacob Chansley on the show. It could have been me very easily, or anyone listening to this show. When the state decides they want to make a victim of you, they will do so, and there's very little you could do about it. Just before we get to, because we have a lot to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because I want to really get into the deep in the weeds with that with you. Can you tell us briefly what that whole experience was like?
Yeah, let me just respond to what you said, because it actually is a very meaningful thing that you say. And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, actually quite the opposite. You know, I'm not a military guy.
Right.
I come from a family that has military on both sides, but I'm not a military guy myself. But I look at the military men in my family, and a lot of them served foreign tours. And so, you know, part of my mindset when I was in there was, if this is what I have to do to serve my country, then I'm lucky. You know, then I'm extremely lucky if this is my duty to serve my country, standing up for free speech and being a political prisoner, or you know, if we want to be dramatic, even a prisoner of war. But I do believe that's what it was. So I consider that a good thing. I hope that that's the worst it gets for us. I hope that would be the worst Americans have to go through if that's what it takes to save the country. I'd gladly do it again if it meant saving the country. Who knows? I might have to. But so I just want to say, you know, I look at that as, I'm glad that that's the worst I had to go through, compared to people that have served, compared to my family that have served. And so that's just kind of how I wrapped my head around it when I was in there was, you know what, if this is my duty to serve the country, this is nothing compared to what my forefathers did, serving in the military. Having said that.
Wait, can I say one more thing? And compared to some of the other prisoners who had solitary, who were looking at decades and decades, which I regard as torture and completely and no justification whatsoever, unless someone's like some kind of mass murderer or a threat to other prisoners, is there justification for solitary?
Well, so solitary is what ends up happening in the prison is what it's actually called is the special housing unit. It'll be referred to as the SHU. And so there's a couple reasons why they have it. It's basically the prison in the prison. So you can still commit crimes in the prison. And so they have to punish you for that. So they take you out of general and they'll throw you in the SHU. So there is a purpose that it serves. And then also, depending on what prison you're at, there might be another reason for you to be in there for your own protection.
Sure.
Say you're a gang dropout, or you know, you're a child molester or something, and you can't be in general. So yeah, I do think that there is a purpose for it. But obviously, I was put in solitary for punishment. That's what it was. It came right from the DOJ. I was told that. Off the record conversations with people at the prison I was at. So, you know, I'll protect them. But yeah, I mean, it was a call from the top to put me in solitary.
Oh, and there was no, I mean, I'm 99% sure I'm correct in this, that Ross Ulbricht was put in solitary. I know Jake Chansley was put in solitary. None of you three at any point were accused, even suggested of hitting and assault a police officer or civilian, breaking property, threatening people with death. So in those cases, I can wrap my head around it. Like you're saying, like, okay, someone's going to shank a CO, someone's a threat to fellow prisoners, or has actually harmed them. But when there's not even the pretense that this is a violent person, it clearly becomes some kind of Soviet era type situation.
Well, in every case you just mentioned, and there are more, were obviously political. It was political persecution and punishment.
So let's talk a bit about this Jeffrey Epstein stuff.
Do you want me to break the news for you? Because I know you've been live while this has all been going on. You know, Trump and his cabinet have been having a meeting. So can I break some news for you?
Please do. We're gonna air this tomorrow, but, like, please break it for me because I just
Yeah.
to briefly before you go on, I've been following this a little bit, and the little bit I've been following, I feel like I'm in Plato's cave because none of the pieces add up, and I've seen some theories, and they don't seem coherent to me, but obviously this is your bread and butter, so please, drop some knowledge on us.
Well, first, let me I think that the pieces are starting to form a picture,
Okay.
but the picture is ugly. It's a
Sure,
picture
sure.
it's a picture we don't wanna see, and it's maybe something we're kind of even like, "Oh, I'm not ready for that." But
Okay.
you were joking because, I had my Clown World shirt on today.
Right.
I thought it was gonna be retired. I thought when Trump got into office, I could retire my Clown World shirt, but it looks like I gotta bring it back now.
Wait,
No,
can
so
I
what
hold on before you
happened.
go on. You remember the last year of his presidency. You remember him bending the knee to Fauci.
Probably
You
more so than are you talking about Trump?
yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
No.
this idea people have that I hoped it would be better, and I thought the first 100 days were infinitely better, but the idea that it wouldn't be clown world, I did not think that that was an option. We don't have the
Yeah.
rockets yet.
I
Sorry,
guess we're
Elon.
we're permanently in clown world, I
Yes.
suppose. Look, the Fauci stuff, I guess I would be a little more I would leave a little bit more room for excuses there because, you really don't know what's going on with this virus, and you're getting a lot of
Sure.
incoming, and so maybe you're kinda just saying, "Alright, just shut it all down, whatever." But we'll put that aside for now. So, they have their cabinet meeting at the White House. Trump finishes speaking, and they kind of go around. Everybody has their little say, talking about amnesty, the Iran strikes, all this other
This is
stuff.
right now or
Yeah, this
recently?
just happened. This just happened.
Okay.
Trump
Okay.
scolding the media, kind of just your typical cabinet meeting.
Sure.
And then somebody speaks up. I don't know who it was. Somebody
Okay.
speaks up and asks President Trump about the Epstein case.
Yeah.
And he basically blows up on the reporter, scolds the entire media, and says, "Stop talking about it. We're not talking about it anymore. It's done." Pitches it over to Pam Bondi, who then has a follow-up question because she said she had the list on her desk. I mean, that was her own
Right.
quote. So follow-up question about the list. Then she says, "Oh no, I wasn't talking about a client list. I was talking about his own porno stash. But we looked
What?
into it. There's nothing there. He wasn't an agent. He wasn't an asset. He was just a lone pedophile pervert." And shut up. That is now the latest we have from the White House is that Epstein was just a pervert with a porn stash, wasn't an agent. Now shut up and quit talking about it.
Okay.
So honk honk, Mike.
Here's my confusion. Okay. If someone has something on all these people, why are they flipping them now instead of flipping them earlier? Why are you going to allow the mess to percolate when you could have sat them down if you have that power after the day, election day when you first start? Like if I tell you a secret, Owen, and you tweet about it, I'm not waiting 5 months. I'm giving you the call. I go, dude, you're blowing up my shit, and you're like, oh fuck, let me rein it in. That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and how can you have such a PR disaster, right? I
Right?
mean, it's like if you've made the decision that you're gonna try to sweep this under the rug, or and I don't even know if we want to get into the weeds of this, but let's just say the evidence has been destroyed, whether it was the first
Sure.
Trump administration, the Biden administration, whatever, and you've kind of been caught with your pants down now, and you're being asked to catch a fish that isn't in the pond, then okay, but you got to have better PR than this. And
Right?
so maybe they're underestimating how much the American people are interested or care about this story. Perhaps that's the mismeasurement that's been made here. But I think now I've seen it twice, and I would say President Trump for a nearly 80-year-old man is obviously really really with it. Great
Sure.
energy. It's really
Yes.
impressive actually how much for an 80-year-old man. But now I'm starting to maybe wonder like is the age starting to catch up with him now? Because I've seen two things happen in this administration that I've never seen from President Trump before, and that's him actually get flummoxed. He got flummoxed over the Elon Musk fallout. I think
Right.
that that's just observably true, no matter how you feel about it. And he was clearly flummoxed today when the Epstein file and the Epstein case was brought up. That's not the Trump that we're used to. That's not the stable genius, steady hand, always in control Trump that we're used to. And so it looks like the Elon deal and now the Epstein deal it looks like these are things that kind of throw him off of kilter a little bit. And, it's just something we've never seen from President Trump before. So again, it's like you're trying to wrap your mind around it. We're all trying to wrap our mind around it. But like you said, it doesn't make sense. How can we sit here and be told this is the official narrative that Epstein had cameras in all of his rooms? He had a Zorro ranch in New Mexico that was apparently doing cloning, and he was working with tech people like Bill Gates. He had his St. James Island where everybody would fly out there and do
Sure.
God knows what.
We have the flight
Okay.
logs.
And we have the high profile flight logs, everything else. And then Maxwell is rotting in prison right now for all the sex trafficking and everything and all the victims. And then they just come out and say, oh no, Epstein was just a pervert pedophile and he had a giant porn stash. So what? Epstein. So Maxwell, I'm supposed to believe that Maxwell was trafficking sex slaves just for Jeffrey Epstein to go into his dozens of rooms and film himself raping these girls for his own entertainment to watch later that he kept in safes.
Yeah.
That's the official narrative now, and just move on.
There's so much to unpack. Let me start. First of all, I can steel man the Elon thing, which is it is Trump's personality, as we've all seen, that as soon as someone turns on him, he nukes them. And this is one of the first, I think this might be the first time when someone turned on him or had disagreement, whoever's fault it is, where he's like, I'm going to hold my fire and I'm going to be, oh, Elon's a great guy. I respect him. So that could be where the flummoxing comes from. I could wrap my head around that theoretically. This Epstein stuff. Okay. We know some of the victims. So we know the victim and what is I still what the narrative, not only is the narrative, my confusion here is Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino had a very successful career, right? At any moment he could go back to it. He didn't need this. He's only been in there for 6 months. He's not even the head of the FBI. He's number 2. He very publicly had a lot of contempt for the deep state. If there's one premise I'm not going to change my opinion on is that Dan Bongino is smart. Now, he could be an evil person, but I'm not going to pretend he's not smart. That interview that you and I saw and a lot of people saw, where him and Kash Patel looked like they were hostages, saying there's nothing there, we looked it over. If someone came to you, Owen, gun to your head, and said, listen, you're going to go on TV and you're going to say that Alex Jones, works for Putin and that you've been taking money from Qatar, blah, 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 you would sell it. Because if it's at the point where you're getting flipped, where someone is, and you're not a dummy, I have to pass this test, which is really going to be a high barrier because people are going to be skeptical because I've been running my mouth for a long time. They didn't do that. That's what doesn't add up to me. How is it that they're going to say these things, but say them in an utterly persuasive way? If they're telling the truth, it doesn't make sense. And if they're lying, it doesn't make sense.
Well, when you're somebody like me that just fully immerses himself in these political stories and in the political world, you start to kind of hone your senses to pick up on certain things. And you just hit, I think, which is a very important thing. And it seems kind of trivial and most, people would kind of just skip over it or not notice it. But absolutely, the body language here is extremely significant. It's extremely observable. It's no longer the confident, chest held high, strong, staring you right down, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel that we saw for 4 years in the Biden administration talking about the deep state and the Epstein list and everything. Now it was like a deer in the headlights, kind of sunken in. It was like almost totally different people. Now I'm not saying they're different people.
Sure.
But you get the point. And then, maybe it's also worth mentioning the same thing has now happened with Caroline Leavitt. And it actually started with Caroline. It actually started after the Iran strikes. And if people that are kind of keeping score at home, I think the Iran strikes was the first time the Trump administration was kind of forced to engage in propaganda or just outright lying. Okay. And their excuse might be they're getting bad intelligence. And of course, they're basically going off intelligence from Israel. They're going 100% off Mossad intelligence. And so I don't know why, no reason to not believe that. They just said there was an Iranian drone ship off the East Coast for 6 months that was obviously a lie. So, let's trust them. But nonetheless, that's whose intelligence they're going off of. That's who Ratcliffe is getting his intelligence from. And that's why Tulsi Gabbard, who's getting other independent intelligence sources, has been completely removed from the circle. I don't think she was at the cabinet meeting today or yesterday.
Have you heard about OneSkin scalp serum, OS1 hair? People are raving about it. If you're familiar with OneSkin, you know about their patented OS1 peptide. It's scientifically proven to target aging at the level of the cell. It's what powers their skin and sun care, and now it's targeting age-related hair loss and thinning. Listen to this. People are sending reviews like, my hair has never felt this thick and full, and my scalp feels healthier than ever. And I started 3 months ago, and I'm seeing new little hairs in my scalp line. One consumer even wrote, I've tried everything for hair growth, and I'm finally getting a response from my hair. It's not just talk. OneSkin scientists did a clinical study showing that after 6 months, participants had significantly thicker and denser hair. If you're ready to give OS1 hair a try, you get 15% off your first 3 month supply with code Malice at oneskin.co. In fact, since I use their stuff for my face, I am going to put an order in right now because I really want to try this because this sounds pretty awesome. Here's the thing about OneSkin. They believe that the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how you look, but to optimize your skin's biology at the cell level so it's more resilient to the aging process. And brother, I need all the help I can get. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off with code Malice at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code Malice. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them and tell them you're welcome. Let's get back to the show. Wait, can we fill people in on this? So Tulsi went very, very slightly rogue. She went on Twitter. She had this video about Hiroshima, and she was saying not that long ago, which is not the administration's position, that Iran is not on its way to nukes. Trump, by all accounts, brought her into the Oval Office or wherever it was, read her the Riot Act, and very quickly she's like another hostage. She goes, "Oh no, they're weeks away. This is going to happen." So the thing is, it was sloppy. It was, first of all, it was sloppy for her to kind of go off script, because if there's one thing this administration solves for, it's loyalty. Like, that's the one of the things he learned from his first term. You're going to follow my lead. Now that has costs, because if your lead's incorrect, you're taking them all off the cliff. But that is clearly how he's approaching the second term. And for one, I don't blame him, given how many people turned on him the first term, made millions selling, like Bolton, who couldn't see that coming, made millions selling books, defaming him.
Well, and again, it gets back to the body language situation. And if you do
Right.
go back, because you brought it up earlier, again, I would allow some room for excuses during the Fauci takeover of the administration.
Sure.
And I think the Trump administration and Trump himself was acting in good faith at that time.
Yes, at the beginning, yes.
But I don't think we're getting such good faith now after the Iran strikes, and I certainly am not feeling any good faith after the Epstein situation. And I think whatever is going down, this is the first time, in my eyes, this is the first time, and the Trump administration may be well aware of it too. Maybe that's why Caroline Leavitt quit wearing her crucifix around her neck. I don't know if you noticed that. She took off her crucifix now. She doesn't wear it anymore. So I don't think
When
that's
did she stop?
Just this week. Just this week.
Oh,
And I'm sure
wow.
she's like me. I wear a crucifix as well. I have it right here. It literally never comes off. It never
Okay,
comes off.
sure.
I'm sure Caroline's the same way. A lot of people are like that. It just never
course.
comes off, right? So her taking it off, I don't think is insignificant. So what I think is happening is it's the first time this administration, or any Trump administration, any member to the Trump administration, have had to engage in propagandizing the American people, or if you want to just put it harshly, lie to the
Sure.
American people. They're not good at it. And I think that's what it is. I don't think they're good at it. It's not what they're there to do. And so things are just kind of looking hairy, and the body language is not good. And they know, people know that they're lying. And so they don't know how to do it. And so it's really a bad look right now, unfortunately, for the
Hold
Trump
on, but I
administration.
think Trump is good at it, and in this context, a lot of times he says things that are so over the top that it's almost like he's full of shit, but no one cares. I remember during I think it was the Kamala debate, where he said, "I overturned Roe v. Wade. Everyone hated it. Everyone wanted it overturned. No one thinks that everyone wanted it overturned. It was a segment of the population, and they were happy to have it, including many leftists who were like, this is not good law, Ruth Bader Ginsburg being among them. But that was one of those things where it's like, okay, like whatever. Or like, oh, I've had the best approval ratings of any Republican ever. That's also not true, but this is just par for the course.
Yeah, but I think that's a little different, Trump just being Trump versus now the administration telling us, oh yeah, Iran was weeks away from a nuclear weapon like they have been for 30 years, or, oh yeah, there's no proof that Jeffrey Epstein was an agent or involved in trafficking.
The Iran stuff is, okay, I'm running propaganda for the war machine. I get that. This feels very different. This feels personal. And it feels much sloppier, because with the Iran stuff, there's a narrative there. Okay, it's a bullshit narrative, but it's a very clear narrative.
And there's an appetite too. Appetite. People want to bomb Iran. They like the military. They hate Muslims. Whatever. There's actually an appetite for that. Covering up the Epstein stuff, there is no appetite for that.
And listen, my last book, The White Pill, talked about the Soviet Union, the show trials, what they did to these people. And I'm sitting here racking my brain. What could they have possibly done to Dan Bongino that would make him react this way? And I can't think of anything. Even if
Well,
they
let me
just
ask
said,
you this.
one thing, even if they threatened his family, which they would certainly do, I would not put that past them for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
He would sell it. He would know to sell it. Like you're like, look, if I flipped you, I know how this sounds. I'm Mr. Owen Shroyer. I'm Mr. Tinfoil Hat. Guys, I'm telling you, believe me, I'm putting my reputation on the line. And you'd have receipts. Where are the receipts?
And he always talks about receipts. Like he's the
Yes.
receipts guy too.
Yeah.
Maybe and maybe that's what it is. And Dan Bongino, massively successful podcaster, arguably when he walked away from his podcast to go serve as the FBI deputy director, he was probably top 5 in the podcast world, certainly in the
Huge,
conservative world.
huge money.
So, he walked away from it. Maybe part of the discomfort he's feeling is knowing at this point, how do I go back to my audience? How do I go back to my podcast after this, right? After I said everything I said, after I wrote all the books that I wrote, and then I become FBI deputy director and really don't deliver on much. And look, let's be fair here. They have done a lot of arrests. They have busted a lot of child sex trafficking rings, and they've deported a lot of criminals. They've probably stopped a couple terror attacks. So we'll give them that credit, but that's their job. I mean, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's your job at the FBI. So hey, we can say great work. You're doing your job well, but that doesn't take away from the future that he's facing of going back to his audience with 0 deep state arrests and all of a sudden don't talk about the Epstein client list. So I don't know. Maybe that's the discomfort. And I'm sure, I've heard some things, and I don't like, DC gossip, but I've
Sure.
heard there's been some fallout in his personal life because of this stuff as well. I'll leave it at
Okay.
that. I don't think that would surprise anybody.
Sure.
But I think maybe from this is a successful man. He's got an ego, right? He's going to have a big ego. You have to when you're in media. You and I
But
know
no,
that very
hold on.
well.
To that point, I agree with literally everything you just said. That's his excuse to be like, fuck you, I'm walking. I'm breaking this case wide open. They try to sit me down. So there's 2 scenarios. Either they couldn't flip him or they could. If they did flip him, look, if you don't go on that camera, we're taking your kids or your wife. Fine. I'm going to go in front of that camera. I'm going to sell it better than you ever sold. If not, if there's anything else, I don't see how Dan doesn't walk and then says, guys, this is how deep it goes. They try to sit me down. I don't think Dan is scared for his life in the sense that like a SWAT. Like he's a former cop, he's armed, he's got boys. Like I think he wouldn't be scared of a swatting, right? Or someone taking him out. He would know it. He'd be brave enough and patriotic enough to protect himself. That's what's not adding up here.
Hmm. Well, maybe he does walk away. I don't know. I guess that'll kind of be a time will tell thing. But right now he's carrying the water. And really, for the most part, he's remained silent. He's put up some posts on social media that I think have people scratching their heads. But there's no doubt the fallout from the Epstein PR nightmare and the Epstein fumbling of the ball. I don't even think we can properly assess the damage yet. And I was talking about, when there was kind of the MAGA coalition fracture over the Iran strikes, I explained it. That was like, that was an intersection of a bad car crash, but it wasn't fatal. Like it was a bad car crash, but it wasn't like it, I don't think everything was totaled. So we were kind of reevaluating things as like, okay, we had a
Sure.
bad car crash here,
Sure.
definitely some damage, but it looks like we can probably still carry on and be okay. This car crash scene of the Epstein debacle, this is permanent damage. This is cars totaled. We're still assessing the scene. We're still counting bodies. Even this is totally different. And really, it's just embarrassing, I think, more than
It is
anything.
embarrassing.
And maybe that's why there's such a visceral and angered response to all of this when the media is questioning it at the Trump administration, because it's really just embarrassing and they can't hide from it. It's on their plate now.
Well, hold
They
on.
can't hide.
I'm going to disagree slightly. A couple things. I do think they can hide from it because I think our corporate media is going to very quickly become very intellectually incurious because their fingerprints are all over this, and many of them. One more thing I forgot to say. I don't think Dan's on the list. Right. So that would be the one thing that would make sense if Dan had been on the list, but then he'd know he's on the list. So that wouldn't make sense either. I also don't think it's fatal because I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I think people have a very short memory. And I think come 4 years from now, if they put up a Zoran as the nominee or a Bernie type, very quickly MAGA is going to be like, all right, like either we ignore these pedophiles or actually put one in the White House, or someone who's allied with them. So I think he's much more Teflon than people give him credit for. My big question mark, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this: JD Vance, has he touched this? He's not going to be able to ignore it either.
I have not seen anything from JD Vance. When he was on the campaign podcast tour, he spoke about the Epstein list
Right.
pretty liberally, I would say. He said that we needed to see it. Vance has kind of served his role as kind of just the quiet supporter who's there
Right.
when you need him. So he's not. I doubt he'll say anything that'll ruffle any feathers. We'll see. The only thing about when it comes to the election, what I see happening, and it seems to be increasing when it comes to Republican voters, and I think this is what Elon Musk is doing in creating the America Party, is you're creating this voter apathy
Yes.
where people just aren't going to show up to vote. And I
Yes.
agree that conservatives and people that hate communism are going to say, okay, we gotta try to keep this guy out of office. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a section of Americans on the right that just say it doesn't even matter who I vote for
That's
because
right.
I'm getting the same thing no matter what. Now, maybe a campaign against communism could motivate them to get back to the polls. I think all of this is a little too early to say,
Sure.
but I will also say this: what I hope comes from all of this, and I've been talking about this for a while now. What I hope comes from all of this is that this is like it's going to usher in a new generation of politics. It's going to usher in a younger generation of politics where you have on the left your outright communists, your outright socialists. It'll be your Bernie Sanders types. He's handing his political capital to AOC, maybe a Mamdani, but Max Frost, Greg Cesar, these types of people. These are outright communists. These are younger left wingers, 30s, 40s. So they're starting to come of age in the Democrat Party, and the geriatrics are starting to, go the way of the dodo bird. Well, I'm hoping the same thing happens on the right, that we can counter this with a very pro, nationalist. They want to call it isolationist. I don't think that's fair. I think that's a propaganda term that's been used for decades, but it's nationalist. It's people.
Monroe Doctrine.
It's basically, hey, we're getting back to free market
Yep.
capitalism. We're getting back to independence. We're really doing evaluation of all these policies over the years, foreign policies, domestic policies, and what
Right.
they've done to damage the country. We're going to reassess this. We're going to reset this. We're going to get back on actually building America up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think that the left and the right both see the same thing, which is Americans are broke. They can't afford whatever it is. Insert buzzword here. Healthcare,
Yeah.
groceries, right? They can't
Yeah.
afford X, can't afford a home, whatever it is. So they see all of this. They see the decaying infrastructure, and they just see billions of dollars going overseas, right? I mean, we just sat here and struggled for this big, beautiful bill. The American people get held hostage just to get deportations and tax cuts. But then overnight, we find out Israel continues to get hundreds of millions of dollars in military support. Nobody votes for that. Ukraine is about to get more military support from the Trump administration. There's no resistance there. There's no struggle there. But it's like, oh, America needs tax cuts. America needs to fund its military. America needs to fund border security. Well, now you're going to be held hostage for a 1,600-page bill that's going to increase the deficit, increase the debt ceiling, and crush us into the future. That's a big struggle session. But some foreign country needs more money, more weapons. Psh, no problem. No
But
resistance at all. So I think
I'm gonna
the new right is we think government is the problem, and the new left thinks government is the solution. But
sure.
I think we both see the same issues and want the same thing, just different courses of getting there.
I'm gonna recite to you a tweet I had last week and want to hear your thoughts, which is the only thing voters hate more than wasteful spending is cutting it. So I do agree with you, right? If they really care that much about this government being too big, more people would be campaigning on it, and they're not. I don't think voters care, and I think they're being told they don't have to.
Well, I mean, Doge was really popular. Doge was a popular thing in the campaign. So I think traditionally you would probably be right, but I think it's changing. I do think it's changing. And I think Doge kind of blew the lid off of that, where people can finally look at this stuff and say, Why are we spending money on shrimp running on treadmills? That's a real thing, by
Sure.
the way. Why are we spending money on, trans plays in Argentina and all this other
Right.
nonsense? So I think maybe, I think traditionally that would probably be a fair analysis. I think it might be changing, though. I do think it might be changing. Time will only tell what happens in the midterms and then the presidential election. But I really believe that I really believe that the presidential election in 2028 is going to be so different than any election we've seen in modern American history. I think
Yes.
both platforms are about to change dramatically,
Yes.
and I think that no more. And Trump kind of broke this door down, really, if we're being honest. But the whole political correctness and decorum and all of this stuff that you're used to on a presidential campaign, I think 2028, throw all that aside, and it's going to
Yep.
be about who makes the most outlandish statement, who
Yes.
has the most strong policy stance, and then who's going to get up there, and when the political wonk starts going back and forth, say, pause, this is all bullshit,
Yeah.
here's what's really going on.
Yeah, the reason AOC is AOC is because she's good at social media. Now, you and I are not particularly fans of her social media, but she knows how to use it a lot better than Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer do, that's for sure. What if you could delay your next two mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those two payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you are feeling stretched by everyday expenses like groceries, gas, bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting those expenses on a credit card, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 raise. Fast, simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 866 336 5030. That's 866 336 5030. Or even easier, AmericanFinancing.net/malice. Call American Financing today to find out how customers are saving an average of $800 a month. That's 866 336 5030. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/malice. NMLS 182334. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Thank you, American Financing. Let's get back to the show. One question I really want to ask you, which is if Mom Donnie gets through New York, which I would not bet money on at all, because I think the corporate Democrats are really good at taking out the Bernie wing when it suits their purpose. And Chuck Schumer, I would say, is the smartest politician in New York State in terms of savviness and understanding how to operate the machine. If he comes in, AOC, I think, is definitely going to primary him. Why wouldn't she? It's just going to improve her platform, more money. There's no downside for it. So he's going to try to nip that shit in the bud completely. I think the Democrats are in great shape for 2028, which is kind of heresy in right of center circles, because here's why. The midterms come, they get perfect A/B testing. They run the Mamdani candidates in some districts. They run the Hillary corporate hacks in other districts. They see which ones work, which ones don't. And that's the kind of candidate you run in 2028. You've done the basic research nationwide. So I think that would suit them very, very well. And people who think the Democratic Party is dead, I was on Gutfeld not that long ago, and they're taking their victory lap. Oh, Democrats never going to win again. I'm like, this is the oldest political party on earth. These people will throw anyone under the bus. Their only goal is to seize and maintain power, and they're very, very good at it. So if you're going to bet against them in perpetuity, I think, in my opinion, you're crazy.
Well, you know how the Democrat Party works. You've done your research. That's what they spend their money on. They
Right.
spend their money on voter data and voter research to get those exact desired outcomes that you just explained. So I do anticipate you will see, if not that exact same picture play out, at least something similar in the midterms. And I would agree right now. I think the Democrats right now, plenty of time. Right now, I'd bet on the Democrats winning the House in 2026. And again, 2028 maybe still a little too far in the future to
Sure.
fully predict. But I will say, I think that this is where you were talking about your appearance on Gutfeld last week. I think this is where right wingers and Republicans are kind of just lost in the sauce right now. I think they're kind of just still kind of in this honeymoon phase, and they don't realize what's really happened here.
Yeah.
The left would have been, we could have buried the left. 100% MAGA could have totally buried the left. The MAGA coalition with Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and everybody else and Elon Musk and this coalition that we just won the popular vote with behind Donald Trump could have been 10, 20 years of success with this coalition. We could have, I believe we could have ended the Democrat Party politically even, but then something happened, and it was the strikes in Iran. And the Democrats had no political ground to stand on. They had nothing. And if you notice, even in the political debates that are happening now, the left is not even involved. They're not
They're
even they're
right.
not even at the
Correct.
table. It's right people, it's people on the right debating each other on foreign
Which is
policy
unprecedented,
and other
I think,
stuff,
in like
which
in
is
at least 30
great.
years.
Which
Yeah.
is great because that's where it needs to go. That's
Yeah.
where the real debates are happening right now. But once they struck Iran, all of a sudden the Democrats that had like no, they had like maybe this much ground to stand on politically for whoever still thinks boys need to compete against girls. So they had like this much ground to stand on politically. Once you struck Iran, you just gave them a whole new land. You just gave them all new turf to operate on. Now they can run against foreign conflicts. Now they can run against war. So they had no ground to stand on. And then you struck Iran, and now they have ground to stand on. And so I think that the honeymoon phase and the Republicans that are just kind of lost in the victory right now and not really looking at the playing field, I don't think they really understand what happened. Once Trump struck Iran, you just gave the Democrats all the fuel that they needed to win in the midterms. And that's why at this point, I think that they will win in the midterms. I don't know why they wanted to do it. I don't know why you would give them that ground to stand on. Of course, the answer is obvious. It's because of our foreign policy being controlled by Israel. But nonetheless, the results are going to be the same. The Democrats now can stand on this ground. War is very unpopular on both the left and the right. So right wingers that are anti-war are going to sit out the midterms, and now left wingers that are anti-war are going to go fervently to the voting ballots, like they did with Barack Obama, and I think probably win the midterms.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. First of all, I think this is, I hope, let's say I hope that this is going to blow over by the midterms. That our foreign policy escalations. This could be either the beginning of a very, very, very bad trajectory, or this could have been like killing Soleimani in 2021, where it was like a one-off and then nothing happens. I could see it going either way. I very much hope it's the former and not the latter. I think they're going to run. And I had a poll. People thought I was crazy that they're going to run on fiscal responsibility. And people are like, yeah, okay. And the next day, Pritzker, governor of Illinois, was talking about how great his budget was and how everything's fiscally responsible. And people are like, they're going to lie. I go, yeah, that's right. They don't have to mean it, but they can campaign is like, what? There's that line. If you want to live like a Republican, vote for a Democrat. And that would be a great line for suburban moms who are the swing voters.
Well, I'll tell you what. Um, in that train of thought, then they've given the Democrats a path there too because they're not doing
Yes.
the Doge cuts.
Yes.
You could have buried any political ground there by actually engaging in $500 billion of Doge cuts, and you haven't done it so far. Now, strategically, you're poignant to point out that it's still early, and so maybe this stuff can kind of get buried before the midterms. So that could be the case that so much stuff happens between now and the midterms that maybe the Iran strikes and maybe not getting Doge cuts kind of just falls down to the bottom of the ocean here politically. But these are the two pathways now. I think we both see that these are two pathways that the Democrats can use to
Yes.
take the House in the midterms.
Yes, yes. And right. So, and the other thing is with the MAGA coalition, people are all like happy that Trump got the popular vote, which was no minor accomplishment. It wasn't on the table, I think, for many people, even as early as October. And then it happened. That said, where are the coattails? The Republicans have their smallest, I think, majority of any party like ever. It's like 2 seats. And that really says a lot. A lot of Trump was against, as I said in Rogan, like a literal retard, and she still came within 3% of the vote or something like that. Now, people are going to say, oh, well, those votes were stolen. Stolen or not, they still count toward the official tally. And the argument is, oh, he's going to deport all these illegals. They're not going to count. He's not deporting enough illegals that it's going to be like literally 2 million people.
Yeah, and
Come
now they're
2028.
talking about not deporting the illegals that work on farms and hotels and
Right.
factories, which, the truth is I get it. And I have friends that run factories, and they were sending me videos because they were going into I mean, they were deporting people. I
Sure.
mean, it was happening.
Yeah.
They were going into farms, they were going into factories, hotels, they were actually deporting these people. And so, yeah, Trump got the call from leaders in these industries, and they said, our means of production have stopped.
Right.
You just deported a quarter of our workforce here. Our means of production have stopped. We got to do something about this. So then they talked about amnesty, and then that was a massive no from the voters. So now they're talking about, okay, we're going to strategically do it. So, part of me, it's like, pragmatism is an important thing. So
Yes.
what are you going to do? If a farm has 25% of its workforce that is a illegal alien, And if you deport them and then the farm's means of production are suffering greatly, well, what are you going to do? I mean, it's a fair question. I don't even know. I'm not even, I don't know what to say about that. It's tough. And you look at now you look at all these people. I don't know if you've seen it. Maybe you have. You have all these people running around bragging about how they get $3,000 a month of EBT cards and SNAP benefits. They go to Walmart, buy all this junk food. It's like a big trend on social media now. Well, they're not working. I don't know if you've also seen these liberals that are doing all these protests. They're like, oh, you shouldn't have messed with us. Don't you know we don't have jobs? So, it kind of hits me. It's like this weird irony, but it's like, oh, it's like liberals really don't work. It's like they really don't go work. Now, as a young man, I don't know. I don't think it's just me, but as a young man, it was like, man, I started working when I was like 13, 14. Like I wanted to be independent as
Sure,
early as
sure.
I could. I didn't want to have to ask mom and dad for money. I was like, as soon as I could take any babysitting gigs. I was umping baseball, reffing soccer. I mean, you name it. I was working like 45, 50 hours a week summer of 8th grade. So I don't know. It's a strange thing for me, for Americans that don't want to work, but that's just a reality. So it's like, so what are you going to do? Are you going to deport all the people that are actually willing to work these jobs and then, hope that somebody takes them, costing means of production? Or are you going to find a way to keep them working here because maybe it's a necessity? I don't even know where to stand on that because it's obviously against the Trump policy, but it's also pragmatic to say, hey, it's, a farmer calls up, somebody in the agriculture company calls up and says, you just deported my means of production. you
And
know,
here's the thing, this is a vulnerability for Trump that they're not deporting after these people, but Elon is to the left of him on this issue. If you had your choice between Trump and Elon, Trump is going to be the one more likely to deport these people than Elon. So
yeah,
the weaknesses that Trump has, Elon is not in the position to exploit them with this American Party. And also in terms of moderates, it's really hard to sell to people, whether you think it's the right thing or not, that like this person's been here since they were a kid. They have never committed a crime. They work, they pay their taxes, they're raising a family. Get them out of here. Now, on social media, it's kind of fun where it's like someone married a lady, never got her citizenship, and after 20 years, she's deported. Like, fuck around and find out. Ha ha. But at a certain point, when you're seeing families rounded up and they're not really a threat to the community, for moderates and people who are apolitical, who are the swing voters, that does not sell well with them. They like the idea on paper, let's get rid of illegals, meaning some guy crossed the border, he's a drug dealer, he's on welfare or layabout. But in terms of like moms and dads and just who are just working, it's a much harder sell.
yeah. I think, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I think though, what you can do to start to naturally solve the problem is you have to end the welfare, right? I mean,
That's
that
right.
just has to be ended. The welfare
And
has to
birthright
be ended.
citizenship.
Yeah. So
That's a
you
big
end
one.
yeah, you end that, you end the welfare, and naturally, I think over time this problem will solve itself. Obviously,
Yes.
the Trump administration has secured the border, so there's no doubt about that. We're not dealing with an open border anymore, so that problem has been solved. And then I think the other thing to do is, and I was looking at some numbers that are actually pretty shocking. A lot of these foreign workers come here and then they send money back to their home
Right.
country. I was looking at India specifically, and India was taking in 138 billion, I believe was the last fiscal year numbers. 138 billion of Indian workers who are working in a foreign country sending money back to India. 32 billion of that was from the United States of America. So Indians working in America sent $32 billion back to India. We're not taxing that money. If you started taxing that money, I mean, I would probably get real aggressive. I'd do like a 25% tax is what I
Which
would do.
isn't that aggressive.
But well, okay, maybe.
You know what I mean?
Hey, I'm the one that said 25. All right.
No,
But
what I'm
if you
saying is,
wanted to be
like
friendly,
the top marginal tax rate used to be like 91% or 98. It was really crazy. So
well,
yeah.
whatever number you want to land on, I think it's part of the solution. If these foreigners can no longer come here and then send all the money back to their family in the foreign country without any taxes, I think that might perturb some of this as well. And even if it doesn't, even if they decide they still want to work here, we're making money off of that. So it's kind of like a tariff, really, in a way. It's like tariffing a foreign worker's work. That hey, if you're going to work here, okay, we'll take foreign workers, but if you're going to send your money back home, we're going to tax that. We're going to keep some of that money here. And so you're kind of like tariffing foreign workers if they want to send money. So that benefits us. That brings more money in. And I think it will stop foreign workers from coming here that think they can just send all of their money back home to their country. So I think with certain policies like that, you can have these issues take care of themselves. But yeah, there's no doubt. But that's why the right wing, we had to just crush the Democrat Party, and it's so upsetting that now they have a breath of life. But that's like the split in the right wing, where it's like, okay, foreign workers, do we have enough of them? Do we have too many of them? Musk says we need more. Trump says we don't. So it's like these are the real debates
Yes.
that the right should have crushed the Democrats. We should have owned the entire political body politic, naturally split into two different right wings. But we gave the Democrats a couple oxygen tanks, so they're going to last at least another 2 election cycles, I'd say.
And here's something else that I think people need to realize. I bet you agree with me that the woke fever is broken. It's peaked. Democrats are receding from it. Gavin Newsom telling Charlie Kirk, yeah, men should be playing women's sports, and everyone's happy. Great. That's Leah Thomas, UPenn is apologizing, which you and I think it was a year ago, said, hey, I bet you $500 UPenn's going to apologize for this. You'd be like, here's 5,000 now. Let's shut up. It's never going to happen, right? It seemed ridiculous at the time. But careful what you wish for. In the same way that in 79, they're like, oh, the Shah Iran's the worst person ever. Whatever's better is going to be better. And then the Ayatollahs come in. They're going to go away from woke economic leftism, social leftism to economic leftism. They're going to, in my opinion, I want to hear your thoughts. They're going toward economic communism. And that's when things really get scary, because I'm not a fan of woke at all, to be honest, to be clear. But this economic communism is when it just really destroys whole countries. Look at Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, and I would never vote for it, but I am kind of rooting for it to take over, just because it's the future of American politics, where it's basically socialists versus nationalists.
Yeah.
Which of course is ironic for many reasons, but I do think that that's where it's going. Now, the strange thing is, we really, in many ways, already live in a socialist country.
Oh, sure.
You're already taxed about 30% of the money you make, which is outrageous. The amount of foreign aid and welfare that's doled out by the
Yep.
American taxpayer is outrageous. So we've kind of already done that. It's just we don't like to announce it, right? We don't stamp socialism on the things that we do, even though we're kind of already there policy wise. But there's no doubt that's where the Democrat Party is headed: outright communism, outright socialism. They like to say taxing the rich, whatever. Raising the minimum wage. They don't understand how this is actually bad for the economy. It's
No,
stunning that we don't.
hold on. No, they understand. They want it to be bad because then they have more power.
But do you really think they understand how the people that they're trying to help are going to suffer? Do you really
Yes.
think they understand
I
that?
think they don't care.
Hmm,
That's my belief.
hmm. Well,
They
I would differ. I don't know. Maybe I have more hope for humanity than you. Maybe
I'm not talking about humanity. I'm talking about socialists.
I don't know. I think AOC genuinely thinks she's helping people.
I think AOC is a bad example. I think there's people behind AOC and like the Soros types and things, people like that, people behind
Well, that's
like
true. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think even if AOC and Mamdani would vote the same thing in every issue, I don't think they're the same person. I think AOC is this bright-eyed college kid, whatever, and I think he's a narcissistic sociopath. And I think it's very clear if you watch how they talk that there's different phenomena going on behind their eyes.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in that race. And Republicans, man, and I guess Adams isn't a Republican, but Republicans are the best at finding ways to lose elections.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like they'll find a way to hand this one to Mom Donnie if they haven't already.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's the Democrats who are going to stop him, just like they stopped Bernie twice, just like Nancy Pelosi shut the squad up.
So
They're
who are they
uncovered
going to?
all
You think the Democrats want Adams?
I think the Democrats want to stop you know how I know the Democrats want to stop this guy? Because the New York Times, which is that far right, alt right newspaper, ran a piece about how he lied about pretending to be black and couldn't get into Colombia. If the New York Times is acknowledging it now, that is giving a signal to the left. This isn't our guy. We got to stop him.
Yeah, but those aren't the voters. Those aren't the voters.
The Democratic primary voters in New York, I'm from New York. The Democratic primary voters in New York are not the same as the electorate. Now, I'm not at all saying he has no shot, but I'm saying I would not personally want to face the New York Democratic machine because I don't think they play nice, and I think they have lots of tricks up their sleeve.
I think the more they attack him, the stronger he gets. is kind of the way I look at it right now. I placed a friendly wager. I think he's going to win.
You do? Do you want to
Yeah.
do? You want to do? We'll make a handshake bet.
Yeah.
Dinner's on the loser. Fair?
Yeah, because we're both in Austin. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I'll double down. I'll take Mom Donnie.
We'll have a nice. And I'm saying not.
He's got a
Mamdani.
cool T-shirt, man. He's got
So
a
do you, and so do I.
No, he's got the Zoran T-shirt, and he's got supermodels shaking their titties for him. I mean, come on, man. This is a campaign we can all get behind.
Owen, I know you got to bounce, and we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Just finally coming on with you, honestly. Just finally making the connection, and I hope we can do it again. I need to get you on my show as well. I need to get a follow-up, and hopefully, I guess I don't know when the New York election is. Maybe we'll get together here in Austin before then.
Of course.
But we got to find a common place where it's safe for people like us to go here in Austin now, because it's crazy out there, man.
You are welcome.
Hey, it's James Altucher. I've been an entrepreneur, investor, best-selling writer, stand-up comic, and whatever it is I'm interested in, I get obsessed. Yes, it's led to success, but it's also led to such heartbreaking failure. I have failed more times than I can count. I wish in my life I had people to talk to. That's why I started the James Altucher Show and bring on some of the most brilliant minds in every area of life. People like Richard Branson, Sarah Blakely, Mark Cuban, Danica Patrick, Gary Kasparov. And I wanted to find out exactly how they've navigated the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, just raw stories and real advice. I've talked to 1,500 of the most amazing people on the planet. So if you want to learn from the best and skip the same old canned interviews, we're all about helping you find your next big idea, level up your thinking, and ultimately to choose yourself. So let's do this together. Subscribe now to The James Altucher Show.
This summer, Pluto TV is exploding with thousands of free movies. Summer of Cinema is here. Feel the explosive action all summer long with movies like Gladiator, Mission Impossible, Beverly Hills Cop, Good Burger, and Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Bring the action with you and stream for free from all your favorite devices. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.